Rogue was something I was introduced to in college. My professor had the top score on the server, and I gave it a shot a few times. Also, you could play it in class and not look like you were goofing off. That was a long time ago, before the rise of roguelikes, although people have been copying Rogue since it came out. With all the derivatives created since 1980, how can a new game come up with something inventive? With vampires, Golden Krone Hotel probably isn't the first roguelike to use vampires, but it's the first one I played. It's a turn-based, little bit more traditional roguelike. This game has some really interesting mechanics that set it apart from other roguelikes though. The main character switches between being human and a vampire, which changes the way you need to play. This includes the fact that vampires cannot go into water, which is something I didn't know about, or by touching sunlight. They both damage you. I knew about the sunlight one. It also changes the enemies that could be standing right next to you. I can't say that it's like playing a completely different game, but the rules definitely change. I figured the vampire switching mechanic was going to be more of a gimmick when I first started playing, but that's just not true. It can be very strategic when you want to switch between them. Unfortunately, it is not always your choice when that's going to happen. First, there is a vampire bar that, when completely filled, forces you to switch into a vampire. You're afflicted with a terrible vampirism after all. Being human is only temporary. Also, switching back to a human is very dependent on finding potions that will turn you back. So far, they seem plentiful, but later on, they're more useful, so playing some levels as a vampire is important. However, since you're a vampire, sunlight and water are deadly. So what, right? You're inside. Haha, no. This hotel has windows. During the day, light can shine through the windows, creating shafts of light, and as a vampire, you'll need to dodge that. It's great. You can use it as a weapon when you're a human, but it's an obstacle when you're a vampire. As we know, the sun doesn't stay in one spot either, so those shafts of light move throughout the day or on each turn. It's a very tense moment when you get trapped between a few enemies and the sun is slowly getting closer and closer. It's best to stick to the shadows as a vampire. In the shadows, enemies cannot detect you easily, and you can sneak up on them. There are torches scattered throughout the levels that, again, is something as a human you'll want to turn on to see in the shadows, but as a vampire, you'll want them to be turned off. The lighting system is awesome. Sneaking around as a vampire is a lot of fun, since you can see in the dark. This turns Golden Krone Hotel into a unique roguelike that makes it worth playing. This is why the vampire mechanic is not a gimmick. It's extremely strategic when switching from vampire to human. There's definitely a few moments when you're completely surrounded by humans and you switch back to a human and those are your friends now and you don't have to worry about it. Can save your ass a few times. On top of that, there are 12 different starting classes, each with different stats, starting items, and starting disguises. And what I mean by that is that you can start from floor 1 as a vampire if desired. And there's a large mix of different ways to play the game. Maybe a typical fighter is your style, or a spellcasting mage. Or start as a vampire and get a boost in the form of vampiric items. This does not disable turning back into a human with a potion though. If you really want a challenge, start as the shapeshifter. They're a werewolf that can turn into a bat, vampire, and a human. At one point, I was a vampire who turned into a werewolf. It was crazy. And there, the moonlight makes you more powerful as a werewolf, but it can get silly trying to manage all the different forms. The loot mechanics are the second most unique aspect of Golden Krone Hotel. The decision to not have to manage weapons and armor is really interesting. Removes having to worry about inventory space and comparing a complicated set of equipment. A lot of games choose to expand on this part of Rogue with all kinds of different stats and damage types and armor types. In this game, it's a simplification for sure, but a welcome one in my opinion. What happens is if you find an item that is an upgrade, you automatically equip it, and if not, you sell it. Makes it a lot easier to focus on the game than which helmet is better for your build. You'll still be making plenty of customization choices with the spells you can equip. When picking up a book, you'll have 3 different spell choices. If you already have the spell, you can upgrade the one you have. Be careful because you can upgrade a spell so much you won't be able to cast it. Each upgrade increases the amount of mana required to cast the spell. However, these spells can only be used in human form. Even if you collect the book as a vampire, you'll have to wait to choose the spells until you're a human again. So, while humans are weaker, they have access to spells and the revolver for ranged attacks. Another interesting aspect of the loot is the potions. Something else that is carried over from the original Rogue. The potion is unknown until either you drink it or identify it. Golden Krone Hotel is nice enough to show you 3 possible potions it could be. I've had little fear in quaffing unknown potions, and so far it's paid off. Especially in a tricky spot, it's better to take a chance drinking a potion because it might just be the one you need to survive. It keeps the runs a little random, but if you play smart, it's not that bad. Side note, I don't want to give too much away on how to complete the game, but you need to explore the entire map. This includes a few offshoots into other areas that are really interesting and serve to break up the game. Instead of a standard floor, they seem to have a theme. I really enjoyed them. There's one thing about the game that annoys me, but I know it has to be this way for the game to work. It just feels odd when you're on a floor with humans and vampires at the same time. If you're a human, the vampires attack you but leave all the other humans alone. It just doesn't make any sense. Of course it has to be this way because depending on if you're a human or a vampire, there should be enemies on the floor. I mean, I get it. I completely understand. But wow, it just feels so unnatural and weird. Anyway, Golden Krone Hotel is a solid roguelike with unique mechanics that make it a ton of fun to play. A child of early access that I consider a great success. It took 1 year of tweaking to get the formula correct. I think that's how early access should work. 12 classes and endless gameplay give this game tons of replayability. It has a normal difficulty for when you beat the game on easy, which should provide a challenge for even the most seasoned rogue gamers. A quality game that I think has flown under the radar, and if you're into roguelikes, is something you should consider picking up. Thanks for watching. Someone left a comment recently, and they said, "I'm glad such a hidden gem community exists." Thank you, Sex French. I didn't realize it, but that's exactly what I'm trying to do. A hidden gem community, games that are missing and lost, and I want to showcase them. I hope I'm doing that. Just thanks for watching, and thanks for that comment, Sex French.